Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thank you for joining us. We're getting ever closer to March town meeting, and we're guesting today with three folks from Swanton Village. And I should know we're taping this show on Tuesday, February 7th, exactly 1 month, 4 weeks before the March 7th town meeting. Happy to have on hand Swanton Village Manager Bill Sheets, Swanton Village President Neal Speer, and geez, Reg, obviously former longtime village manager, but I know you have a title. What's your title these days?
Special Projects Coordinator.
That sounds pretty good. Special Projects Coordinator, Reg Beliveau.
Thank you.
Anyway, good to see you folks. And I should note, again, the annual village meeting in Swanton coming up on March 7th, and I guess 4 candidates all seeking re-election, including the aforementioned village president, Neal Speer.
Right.
Also Adam Paxman, village trustee, seeking re-election, Diane Day, the village clerk, and Betty Cheney, collector of delinquent taxes. And Diane also has a kind of a day job with even more responsibilities. Anyway, no contests as per usual in Swanton Village. I guess the town's got a couple of select board contests, but nothing in Swanton Village.
Right.
Bill, maybe go over the warning a bit here. Anything out of the ordinary on the village warning? I realize it's your first annual village meeting as village manager, but anything out, or Neal for that matter, or Reg, anything out of the ordinary? It looks like kind of the similar articles with funding for what general fund, highway department, fire department, police department, and some capital fund requests, but nothing out of the ordinary, Reg?
No, I mean, if you look at what increases were this year, there's a lot of utilities that were doing double digits on their rate increases for electricity, and we are not this year. Even, I believe, the water and sewer rates are going to remain the same as of present.
At this
so,
point,
I mean, we're proud of our enterprise funds, so they're all remaining stable.
So nothing unusual or anything?
No.
And I assume some increases in all or most of these budgets, nothing too significant, or?
No, I think, what was it? It was a modest increase. I think
it's $135 on a $250,000 home, so very reasonable, modest, especially in this economic climate.
Sounds like folks in the good Queen City of Burlington would take something like that with just having approved the new high school bond was, what, $165 million or something. Yes. But interesting. That sounds pretty modest. So how's it been dealing with your first budget for the coming year, Bill?
Oh, it's been great. But again, I can rely on the experience of the trustees.
Yeah.
Reg's mentorship has been tremendous. I can't say enough. The day-to-day transition, the ability to work on projects collaboratively is exceptional. There's a lot going on, and we're able to do things in tandem.
Sounds like it. You've been officially on the job for how long, Bill?
Let's go with about 2 months.
2 months
yes.
or so. Interesting. And we talked before after you got the job. Again, 2 months, I'm sure, a learning experience in some regards. Of course, former many years with Vermont State Police. I thought it was a pretty decent messenger story by Josh Ellerbrock, who I've never even met, but a couple of days ago in the messenger, I thought that was a pretty decent story with a lot of information on yourself and the village. Any huge surprises in the 2 months? Do you wake up at all? Any morning you've awakened and said, what have I gotten myself into? Or hopefully not many of those mornings?
It's just the opposite.
Yeah.
And it sounds corny. I wake up and I'm excited to go to work, which is the corny title in the messenger. Josh did a great job. We spent an hour together. Yeah. He created the title Dream Job, but I did say that. And it is true. I'm very fortunate, and I do wake up excited. It's a fast-paced world. It's a project world. A lot of balls in the air.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, when it's your dream job, there's a fine line between a dream and a nightmare.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Make you aware of that.
Yes.
You probably had a few of the latter.
Nightmares. We've had a few of the nightmares, but you wake up and things are better on the other side.
Yeah.
So.
Press on.
Obviously, there's a lot going on in Swanton Village. Obviously, with hydro, water. And presumably you had some pretty good feel for knowing what you were getting into. Is it even kind of more than you thought, or did you have a pretty good feel from what you had learned before you started work?
It's a combination. I think there's a lot of projects that were in the pipeline. There's a lot that are new, and there's even more that we're talking about doing. So, I think we spoke about this briefly last time. The newness for me is the electric, the hydro, being part of Vermont Public Power Supply Authority. That's and being a board member there, I'm learning a lot about that purchase power and how that all operates. But here's what I've learned: we got a hydro crew that is finally tuned at working with VEPSA, and we are producing at a high rate. Oftentimes, putting money back into the grid and actually producing money for the Village of Swanton. Unlike other communities who have to pay a lot monthly for their power. So it's really, it's a learning curve, but I've been impressed.
I love your comment in the messenger story, but you'll take rain. You're not unhappy to see rain.
Learn
That's
how
funny.
to appreciate that.
I feel kind of the same way. It almost seems like it's a little drier around here than it should be. I'm usually not unhappy with rain.
Yep.
Anyway, Reg, I think I know the answer. No second thoughts on kind of gradually bowing out as village manager, or bowing out? None at all?
No, none at all. I mean, I got to a point where, I was saturated and it was time to move on. I mean, you get, over the years you feel, when it's time. And having Bill in, it's a breath of fresh air, too, to be able to work with him and have that transition. I mean, it's you feel really comfortable that that when you're handing over the reins and stuff that things are going to go well. So I'm satisfied. I'm very happy to see what Bill is going to bring and the trustees are going to bring to the future of Swanton. Yeah, I have no reservations at all.
That's right. So you're kind of working with Bill into March, kind of, and then in special projects coordinator. Will you keep doing that? Is that for forever maybe, or who knows?
So the game plan is that I still have vacation to burn.
Yeah.
So I'm considered full time still until April 1st,
Yeah.
and then after that, if I come back part time, I have to be gone a month, and then I could get hired back by the trustees.
But what do you think? Do you think, Neal, do you think you guys would take a chance and hire this
I
guy?
think we got to wait and see.
We're going to have to reconsider.
That's right. So what would you say? You think it's likelier than not that Reg will be around in some capacity in the future, or?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
How much we'll have to see how much time he has.
Yeah.
I think his spouse has some plans for that time, and so we're going to have to work with her and him. But like Bill said, we have a lot more coming down the pike that hasn't been introduced yet. In addition to the sewer and water line, the Riviera Hotel project, that's moving along at a steady pace, slow but steady. And our downtown scoping study for rerouting pedestrian traffic and bike traffic downtown. And we're hoping to get some more businesses in downtown as well as outside. We're working well with the town. We have a good relationship with the town, and like Joel Clark would say, it's one Swanton, whether town or village, but hopefully everyone's looking for the same thing, the betterment of our community.
So I guess I might as well mention the M word, which I usually do, but merger, that word doesn't come up much?
No,
Really?
we haven't got that in our dictionary anymore. We don't have that in our dictionary.
And nothing, is that the last thing? Does that sound like a bad thing to do, Neal, from your point of view? You think the village?
It's unnecessary, Richard.
Unnecessary
we don't need
is the word. Don't need
it's
it.
just, it would
So
be
why
a
have so many-
legal expense for the taxpayers of both communities. And if we're working well together the way we are, maybe I'm thinking old-fashioned, but we're progressing quite rapidly the way it's working. So. But these gentlemen here might have a different view of that.
That's right. Reg, any different view?
So when I started in 2011, that was one of my major talking points, or my objective was to show the voters of Swanton that you have two municipalities, but we can work together for the betterment of all of Swanton.
Were you thinking that one municipality might make more sense, or never?
The only redundancy we have is the public works. So you still have to have that person in the plow truck, regardless. We've always supplied mutual services for fire, and now the town has a part-time position for police coverage. We're working well the way it is today. And I think for me it's important to have the taxpayers know that within that general fund we are working well with the town. So.
Bill, any thoughts on anybody does anybody throw the word merger at you or ask you about that? Or
I haven't heard a lot. I had the same question. I had breakfast with Reg prior to my interview to get some background, and that was my question: is where does that stand? And I'll echo what Reg says. I mean, we kind of have the enterprises. We have 37 full-time employees. I have 9 direct reports. The town has 7. Their role is slightly different. So there's supportive governing structures that both serve a role. We historically have worked well with Brian and Swanton. I'm going to continue that. We meet a couple times a week lately. And I think the merger world, I do not believe that it would save anything, and I've been through a lot of them. I ran state police dispatch for years, and we went from 12 to 4 public safety answering points down to 2. It was promised to save millions. It saved 0.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess the one situation in Vermont that comes to mind, hardly an exact situation, but the Essex Town and Essex Junction. I guess hearing some stories that taxes in Essex Town for the town residents are going to take a pretty big hit with Essex Junction now. What Vermont's latest official city, I guess.
Right.
Interesting. I go back to Richard, but I'm sure I was reporting on it, but Richard Village and Town merged X number of years ago, but not a story I can really focus on. But anyway, it sounds like sounds like St. Albans City and Town are doing better these days, finally reaching agreement after having spent, I got to think, the litigation on the water sewer issue between the city and town. I should have kept track of that. If it was $1 million, I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, they finally have a pretty solid agreement, but I'm not hearing anybody talking merger there. But nice to see that. That's a pretty big story, I think, in St. Albans these days. So the transition to a new manager, Neal, has gone pretty well. Pretty well.
Yeah. We've had to throttle back the thoroughbred here a little bit. He's pretty rambunctious compared to what we were used to. Not that Reggie wasn't rambunctious, but Bill is this is not small change. This is a lot smaller operation than what he's used to, and he's used to driving the state operation. And but no, the transition has been entertaining and very smooth. So.
Also, going back to the messenger story, there was a reference in there that Swanton PD is the only PD in the state that's fully staffed. Is that's accurate? I guess maybe that shouldn't surprise me if that's the case.
It was accurate during my
at the time.
Fairly recent tenure as the director of the Vermont Police Academy.
Right.
So, and I got to believe that if there might be a very small agency, 2 or 3 people, Southern Vermont, that I'm forgetting that is fully staffed, but we have an exceptional chief and organization with Matt Sullivan coming over from Burlington, deputy chief there, brought people with him. There are actively phone calls coming into the organization asking if there are openings. That puts us in a really envious spot to be in.
Out of curiosity, you getting any Franklin County deputy sheriffs checking in on possible jobs with Swanton PD?
You would have to ask the chief that. I've not heard about that inquiry.
But you're in good shape staffing at this point.
We are in great shape, and thankfully so, because at some point I'd love to have you have Chief Sullivan in for a conversation.
Talked to him one time. I'd love to have him back. I got to think he's so happy to be out of Burlington. I wake up to the WVMT folks every morning, and boy, Kurt Wright, even with the measure on the ballot, the proposed charter change in Burlington. Kurt Wright, of course, former city council president, he's going crazy. He's even to the point of saying, hey, if they pass this thing, I may leave Burlington. But that sounds like a huge issue down there. Anyway, so I got to think the chief, I would think, is pretty happy to be with Swanton PD these days. But that's been working out pretty well.
It's been working out great, and you're correct. It's a sign that an agency might be in crisis, without going into details, in Burlington. If somebody leaves after a 14-year career to follow the chief to come up here to be a sergeant in our organization.
Do you know I love how he's still acting chief. I thought Mayor Moreau Weinberger might have enough votes on the council, one more Democrat than Prague, to get him the permanent chief. And do you know John Murad, the acting Sounds like a pretty solid guy to me for what little that's
I
worth.
think the world of him.
Yeah.
Worked closely in the
Are you
academy
surprised
days.
he's hung in with that job? Can't be an easy job.
He's dedicated. He's all in. He
Yeah.
burns the candle at both ends, and I do believe that there will be a vote in the near future that will name him the permanent chief.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard not to pay some attention to the Burlington situation. Biggest, again, you have a lot of issues. There's one, well, I guess, in fact, I'll answer my own question, I guess the FERC situation, relicensing of the Ormond-Croft generating facility and the dam. How's that coming along? Who's ever best equipped to answer that question?
That's our special projects coordinator,
Yeah.
Reg.
Boy, Reg, you're probably going to never shake that project until you get the word that you've been
Hopefully by
relicensed.
April 30th of 2024, we'll have a license and a 401 water quality certificate.
So
but
that's
we'll see.
that's a deadline
That
that's
is-
got to happen by, and if it doesn't happen by then?
So most likely, we would get our license to operate by FERC. The only stipulation is going to be the state 401 certificate for water
I
quality.
think you said before, and that's been that's the kind of the tougher issue to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, Morrisville, I believe they're still, I don't know, I want to say 8, maybe 10 years
Really?
post their relicensing. They're still arguing the water
That's how long
quality.
they've been working on this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we're consultations going on right now. FERC has asked for some other studies that the agencies have requested, and we have a rebuttal back to them that just got e-filed today in FERC. So we're arguing that these studies are unnecessary and costly to our ratepayers. So we'll see what FERC's reply has to be.
And again, sorry, studies mandated by FERC or by the state that FERC is kind of overlooked?
So, so these are the studies that the state have requested.
Right.
And FERC came along and said, sure, let's have these studies done.
And now you're asking FERC, hey, why we don't need these? And you're
Yeah.
trying to convince, and if FERC says to the state, no, those studies are not needed, FERC would have the final word as opposed to the state, or not necessary?
No, not necessarily.
Really?
They could still come back and argue.
Really?
Yeah.
Boy,
But
that's
having FERC on our side is a plus, so.
This is the first time you've been through this process, or not?
Yeah, this is the first time. It's
First
usually a
time.
40-year license.
Huh.
So, yeah, the next person may not even be built for the next 40 years.
You think?
I'm sure I've mentioned this maybe a bunch. I can literally remember Ormond-Croft calling me up when I was doing my full-time reporting, whatever, 1980s maybe, whenever the year was,
Yeah.
when he finally got the word, Richard, we just got the word, we've been relicensed.
Yeah.
Sure that made his day, month, year, whatever. But boy, so from your point of view, is this just a crazy, I mean, just a way too involved, expensive, convoluted process? Or?
So I think if you, I'd have to ask the controller again, but I believe we're about $350,000 into our relicensing right now.
Really?
And the possibility being another $250,000.
And that's ratepayers who are picking this?
Yeah.
Is ratepayers
Yeah,
who are
this is-
picking this up?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So the process is arduous. I mean, during our annual meeting, I'll go down through and I'll have a list of the activities that we've done thus far.
Yeah.
But can I say that a lot of the requests are crazy? I can't say that. I mean, the state feels confident that they want these studies and they have reasons for them. We could argue that through the years of our relicensing, we have not caused any extinction within our river, and our operations fluctuate the river so minutely that there's just no adverse effect on aquatic life. So, I mean, when you operate the way you should operate within your license parameters,
Yeah.
you're only going to draw down 18 inches or so, and that affects the river maybe a half inch to an inch, all the way down to the lower Swanton Dam and beyond.
Interesting.
So,
But there are those out there, including, I assume, maybe some folks in Seika who would just love to see a free-flowing
Yep.
river and get rid of all your dams.
but they would rather see us do run a river, so that's constant flow over the bladder.
Huh.
So that in itself is, over the course of the license, is like $6 million worth of lost revenue, and that would go on to the ratepayers back.
Huh. Wow.
So.
Neal, any thought? Sure, you got thoughts on this, but kind of pretty frustrating situation to have so much to deal with to get relicensed.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And being a redhead, not as red as it used to be, I have to control my thoughts, especially when I'm speaking publicly. But like I said at the last meeting we had, it's real frustrating to see the state of Vermont, which you live in, and you're trying to make better, the state of Vermont shooting you in the foot for trying to relicensing, for doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and not trying to work with you at all. There's, like Reggie said, there's no good cause for three-quarters of the some of the studies that they're doing anyway, and there's no justifiable end to it. Why are these people doing this? I mean, they're supposedly Vermonters. They want to keep the state acceptable, clean, which we all want to do, but why are they fighting this on this level? I mean, it's costing their neighbors, our taxpayers, and us unwarranted amounts of money, which it's frustrating is the best word that I can use.
Bill, have you gotten into this issue enough to also get some frustration out of this, just what you have to go through for this, or?
Yeah, and I come from state government, so I
Not
get
used to, probably,
I get the processes, and we're a 100% renewable energy and have been for a long time. And it seems like it should be supported at a little bit different level. I'm mindful that it takes a long time. I'm respectful of the process. I understand the process. Just hopeful there's a resolution that doesn't end up costing us another quarter, half, $750,000.
How's the bladder dam, whatever, how's that holding up? Is that doing okay?
Yeah, it's working really well.
Yeah.
The repairs on it, I mean, it's just like repairing a inner tube. Basically, the guys get out there and grind it down, put a patch on it, and off we go.
Haven't you told me it's about the biggest bladder dam, like in the country or something, or am I way off on that?
No, it's the largest single span in North America.
In North America?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
At 220 feet.
Yeah, it's
Really?
big.
Yeah. There's only like 6 pounds of pressure in that thing. It's pounds per square inch, holding back all that water.
Wow.
78 acres, I think it is.
But and again, the new one has been in place for a couple, 3 years
Since
now?
2019.
Not bad, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's done okay.
Yeah,
Done
it's
well.
working well.
Interesting. So the relicensing issue, you mentioned, I'm not sure we've talked about this on the show before, the scoping study. Neal or anybody, tell me about the downtown scoping study. Or Bill, and anyone or all of you.
I can start with it.
Talk about that a bit.
So with Reg in the lead, they did about a $27,000 grant a couple of years ago to do an assessment, essentially, for ways to improve traffic flow with an eye toward protecting and enhancing pedestrian traffic. Now we're at the point where I've qualified as the municipal project manager, and we have $75,000 in match, but we have a total of about $354,000 remaining for project cost, and we will be going out for a consultant engineer piece here this spring, and we have 2 years in which to implement the changes. But we're talking about enhanced safety, handicap access ramps, pedestrian crossings,
Crosswalks.
some additional, we're still not certain in this, but three-way stops for street and things like that. But those final details have not yet been worked out as exactly how it's going to look like.
How long? What's the time frame to get that
We have a
study
couple
done?
of years.
Couple of years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
I might add, Richard, that the scoping study did include a public forum. We had 2 public meetings to get an idea what the general public, the voters, the people of Swanton would like to do, and gave them some options.
A few people showed up for that, or did you get
a few?
A few.
So if anyone listening is wondering where this scoping study came from, it's been made public, and the changes have been made public, and like Bill says, we're ready to go out for bids for the engineering.
Correct.
And it does address crosswalks, bike paths, bike lanes, but mainly crosswalks, intersections, and having a better flow of traffic, both pedestrian bikes, recreational vehicles, and
of course, part of that will be to reduce the truck traffic, of course, somehow. I'm kidding. Oh, that'd be nice, but
well, the only way that's going to happen is for the Canadians to finish their highway.
Yeah, I was up there not too long. So you think that would help if they finish the final section of whatever
Why do you think Senator Leahy got some money to expand the border crossing up there?
Right, is it a bunch of money?
Yeah. So.
I guess that's hooked into that.
And the Canadians are moving faster than the Americans are with that highway down from Montreal. So.
I was impressed with how fast they built the new Champlain Bridge going into Montreal. It's obviously, that didn't take too long.
No.
As in the islands, we're still there. We're still building the new drawbridge between I mean, hasn't that been like about 4 years?
Seems like it, yeah.
It has been 4 years.
Interesting, they're interesting going to Montreal. They're kind of taking down the old Champlain Bridge at this point.
Yep.
Boy, it sounds like a lot of stuff going on. Downtown, with the health of downtown, Neal, how has downtown got some decent life these days? Or I'm sure you'd like to see more, but
it has, and the Messenger has been up with it. The most of the businesses downtown now are run by ladies, females, and they did a nice article on that and how the driving force, but Merchants Row now is the female entrepreneurs, and the two new businesses, Divine Treasures and Vision Nutrition, are doing real well. I'm in constant contact with them, and the restaurant and Scampers is our mainstay on Merchants Row. The laundromat on the end, that we're working on that. I mean, it needs some improvement there, but Gordon's picking away at the Champlain Theater building. We're expecting something to come through on that.
Hasn't somebody, did I read a story on that? Was someone voicing some interest in that?
There was a story in the Messenger on a baker locally that would like to go in there, but I don't think there's been any commitment.
Nothing nailed down?
No. But
they may have been a little premature, I think.
Yeah.
But the outside is pretty much set except for the verandas. He's going to put on the driveway side. He has all the concrete work, the ramps, the railings. Of course, the Champlain Theater sign is up in the front. I'm waiting to see that lit up with the new LED light bulbs in there. So, and Bees on Broadway is doing well. She has different functions going on different weekends. Brings outside people in, local talent, and then there's the parts store there to complete that side of downtown. The restaurant still on the opposite side of the street, Cody's. They're doing okay as far as I can see, but the gas station on the corner, that's a little up in the air, I guess you'd say now. There's a new business in there, but
of course you have Swanton Notch, a big presence in Swanton. And of course the pharmacy also.
So, but downtown is looking a lot better this year than it did last year. So, but we're and with the scoping study, bringing that out to the forefront now, the improvements in front of Merchants Row are going to be hopefully welcomed. But we'll see more about that in the spring.
It seems like there's always hope about another restaurant, but nothing firm on that.
No.
Far from firm. You run across anybody who voices some interest in that, or just not much?
No.
All I know about the restaurant business, very tough business. That's all I know. But nothing. So not much talk about another restaurant at this point.
No. So.
Swanton Village Municipal Complex, the building itself is looking for some, I guess, renovations and maybe some added space, Bill?
Yeah, so we've dusted off the 2019 Weeman Lamphere Architectural Assessment. We're looking to expand that, but we did the trustees dedicated $50,000 in ARPA funds for that purpose. We've not quite heard back from them to execute a contract for that purpose. They're lining up engineers on their side, ranging from mechanical to civil engineering, with the hopes of determining what we can do moving forward. It's a nearly 50-year-old facility. We're out of space. Just the police department wouldn't even come close to passing national accreditation certification. So
And of course, no holding cell or anything like that, correct?
no sally port, no holding cell, no interview space. No, their evidence room is bursting at the seams. They're doing a tremendous amount of good work. It's being acknowledged by all. We just, it's time. Every community needs to take a look at the way that they deliver their services every 50 years, and that includes a building. So we're hopeful to get some enhancements there.
Any thought to a new building, or just working with what you have? Any thought to a new building?
In my dream job includes a brand-new public safety facility that might house fire and police.
Yeah. Was that U.S. Economic Development, EDA funded Village Municipal Complex?
You know, I've been looking for other grants, and I haven't been able to capture any yet, but that's part of my other things to do.
Oh, yeah.
Bill throw it over the fence, and I pick it up and run with it. So as long as he keeps me on, I'll keep looking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you expect might we see some work this year on that? Is that
No, I think
be down the road further?
anything this year would truly be that exploratory cost determination, cost-benefit analysis, community education and outreach. We're a long ways away from recognizing what might happen, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
We have a year to work on it, and if we were to get to the point where we're a year away from a bond issue or something like that, there's too many unknowns at this point.
You mentioned ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money.
Yeah.
Is there still a lot of money out there to be allocated to different places? Neal, Reg, Bill?
We've committed the vast majority of our
really?
$712,000.
Huh.
We've let's call it earmarked,
Yeah.
encumbered, or allocated, not quite yet committed.
Huh.
But yeah, we have some things in mind that will increase space capacity, our project world. It's just some of those things we're not quite able to talk about just yet, but
Yeah.
I bet by the next time we're here, we'll be able to.
Really? Was that a good, Neal, and I know we get talking about state government, maybe not federal government so much. Do you think that was a good initiative to throw out all that ARPA money all over the country, or not? Any thoughts on
Do
that?
I think it was?
Yeah,
Possibly.
possibly. And again, how much did the village?
that's a
How
lot.
much did the village get?
It's either 710 or 712,000.
Really?
It's
Okay.
one of those two.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, last time I misquoted. I thought Bill was going to kick me, but he didn't.
so,
But it was 700-something thousand, yeah.
so my opinion of it,
Yeah.
whether it was a good move or not, we're going to use it.
Yeah.
We're not going to lose it.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully it's a one-time deal, and the municipalities that are granted that money will have to use it as wisely as they can, so it'll benefit us for the longest period of time.
Yeah.
Because I don't imagine there'll be another ARPA fund coming up too awful soon.
You wouldn't think so.
No.
You wouldn't think so. Back to hydro. When I last left you folks, the Lower Village Dam, looking at getting possibly some hydroelectric potential out of that, Reg?
So right now, there's a company, it's a developer, Stonecat LLC. They're looking at submitting a preliminary application document to FERC to look at the feasibility of putting hydro in there, yes.
Huh. Is that, you know that terrain pretty well. Do you think that's likelier than not, or hard to say at this point, or?
Boy, the battles we're having at Highgate, I couldn't imagine in my lifetime seeing hydro down there, but
Really?
I mean, who knows? You know, Bill and I have had conversations with some other agencies, so we're still in negotiation phases right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, the village, the only carve out the village has is because we own the property. So other than that, I mean, I don't believe our plans are to invest money in that project, but we would, support whatever comes that way. So.
And as we've talked about, I think many times in the past, there are some folks out there who would love to see the Lower Village Dam gone so, but sounds like that's not at all likely to happen, presumably.
Like Reg said, not in the near future anyway.
Yeah.
That's a battlefield that the voters of Swanton want to keep, and it's not costing the voters any money the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's been part of our downtown for over 200 years.
Yeah.
And if we could, even if we could calm the adversaries down by putting a fish ladder in there, that would be great.
Yeah.
But there's too much argument to the opposite side. There's no middle ground
Compromising.
that everybody can agree on, which is another frustrating project. But no, I can't see it coming down in the near future. So.
And meanwhile, the highway bridge, you got some work to do with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so between Bill and I, we've been working on that project. We had a quote. We received some additional funds up to $200,000. We still have a stopgap of about $35,000 that we can't seem to close the gap on that. So we may have to go back to the drawing board and figure out where to go from there. I know we talked to the commissioner or the secretary of Transportation.
Yeah.
And it looked like 2029, I believe, was the date.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll wait and see.
All right. So it may take that long to get
Completely redone.
Really?
Yep.
The bridge has enough life to wait that long, hopefully?
One would hope.
Wow. So again, one of the many projects you've been giving that some attention to, obviously, huh?
Yeah, and Reg was the project lead on that. He'll continue to be there by my side. Hopefully, it's one of those ones where we just have to ensure that the repairs that we do mitigate any disaster from happening and make sure it's safe until 2029. And we thought it might have been 2026. We're pretty firm 2029, and you always say that, give or take a year, because it could be a little earlier, it could be a little later, and we want to utilize the available grant funding we have right now, which is $200,000, to do some remediation and just have a fix in place that will take us to 2029.
Yeah,
We'd love to give the bridge back to the state of Vermont, but they don't want it.
They don't want it, huh?
They do not.
No. And I've got to say, too, like, with all of these projects that we talked, I mean, I think I have a list of like 5 or 6 projects. I mean, if I look back 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, just trying to get all the projects done that we have gotten done during the time that I've been working there, working for the village. If I had somebody like Bill to work with me, we would have been a lot further along in these other projects that we've been working on. I mean, just having the ability to sit across the table and basically throw ideas across, and just have that open discussion. Yep. Somebody that has the same mindset or the same interest for the village, rather than talking to a contractor that's going to feed you, basically bull that it's because they want the job. And it's really refreshing to have this set up the way it is right now.
Reggie's been 12 years learning the ropes, and Bill has been 20 years handling the ropes. So with the two of them together, it's a hell of a team we've got now. Because Bill's been through the frustrations with the state of Vermont for years, and Reggie's been learning how to deal with the frustrations and what the frustrations were. So his accomplishments have been, they put their thumb on his accomplishments. Now things are teaming up or things are moving forward. It's real encouraging, real happy about the way things are developing for the Swanton community.
I think you mentioned before, I asked you about Marble Mill Park. There are some plans to do some changes in there. But I think you said before you're hesitant or didn't make a lot of sense to do that before the highway bridge.
So there was a couple of projects, Bill, if I could. There's a couple of projects associated with that area. One is the river crossing, which should be happening this spring, and that's in the Marble Mill area. And then the other one was the bridge repairs and the bridge reconstruction at the entrance of Marble Mill Park. But that area also, we did apply for a grant, and we actually got close to receiving it. But being in the floodplain, I believe the price tag was like $3 million
Really?
to renovate that and make it a different space. But being in a floodplain like it is, it just didn't grow legs.
So at this point, no real plans to make changes in Marble Mill, or no time soon?
I mean, we've gone through and we revamped the tennis courts, the fence around it. There are talk with Northern Forest Canoe Trail to probably put in overnight camping for the canoers in the area. That was a project that I was thinking about like 3-4 years ago, I believe it was. So we may try to resurrect that. It would bring some businesses back into the downtown too, the restaurants and whatnot. But it also shows some life back in there. Pickleball's been a big thing down there at the tennis courts. Nicole Draper, working at the rec department, she has a lot of good summer programs and stuff that could help with Marble Mill Park revitalization as well, kayaking and that kind of stuff. I don't know, Bill, if you have any other.
No, I think in a perfect world, we would relocate any of the courts that are there somewhere in the village or town. I don't know where that would be, and I don't know where we would get that cost, but the ultimate vision would be a total green space that would be impervious to any flooding, or it would be minimal impact. A canoe, a kayak trail, an outdoor recreation picnic area. And if you build your restaurant base, you literally would be able to just walk down the road.
Of course, there used to be a restaurant,
Yes.
my old radio boss,
Right.
of course.
Yep.
Yeah, and picnic right there. It would be a beautiful spot. I just, that's not on the immediate horizon. We don't really have any remedy for where to put the tennis courts or the facilities, but long term, if that was a true functional green space, I think it would be heavily utilized.
The boat access is right across the river from kind of
Yes.
Marble Mill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any thought to making, could you use another boat access? Is that good enough for you? Does that work okay?
The state put that in. That's
Right.
that's a nice
That's the
access.
same.
But like
Yeah.
Reg said, we were talking about some overnight camping, and that is one of the areas that we're considering, because the village owns that.
Yeah.
Was it Goose Point?
Yes,
Yeah.
Goose Point.
It'd be ideal if we could set the right rules in place. That would make a nice overnight campground for canoers, kayakers, whatever.
Yeah.
In addition to Marble Mill. So.
Yes.
But-
So the Hotel Riv, I think it was touched on briefly. Will this year, and we're in what, 2023, will the Riv,
We
Neal's a good neighbor
Please,
to the
please
Riv
don't
there.
direct this to Neal. We'll handle this.
Yes, I was gonna suggest you ask Bill, not me.
Will the Riv be gone, demolished by the end of this calendar year?
Yes, sir, it will.
Yeah.
So we did the walkthrough for the asbestos abatement contractors. We received 3 bids. We're in the final selection process for that. We should have a contract in place by early next week, late next week. They will be permitted to go in within a few weeks. That remediation will take approximately 4 days. As soon as they are done, in conjunction with some other environmental testing that will happen, we have a contract in place already for the demolition, and that demolition can start as soon as the asbestos abatement is done and we get signed off by any environmental concerns up to that point. So let's go with around the end of April. We hope to have that building off-site. There will be some additional remediation that have to be determined for the environmental factors. And then we'll be able to hopefully start the process of going out with an RFP process, request for proposals on suitable folks that want to come in, and we want them, the trustees want them to tell us what they intend to do with the property
And
based
how
on
big's the-
parameters we set.
How big's the parcel?
1/3 of an acre.
That's what I would have got, 1/3 of an acre.
Yeah.
So housing comes to mind, anything,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And housing would seem to be the most obvious line.
Yes.
And we have had some interest, but up until this point, the people that might be interested in it want a time frame that they can work by, and we haven't been able to give them a time frame
Right.
because we don't know when it's going to be cleaned up or stamp of approval for development. So it's kind of tough to commit to somebody. But like Bill says, when we do get a clean slate for that lot, we'll go out for proposals, and the trustees will decide what's going to go in there. We don't want something controversial in there, or have a promise that's not going to develop. So, but the main thing is to get it cleared up first.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of housing, this sounds like obviously a huge issue in Vermont. Just about any story gets back to lack of housing. Swanton Village, how are you faring? I mean, do you run into folks who would be happy to live in Swanton Village if they could find a decent place to live? Does that seem to be maybe not as much of an issue in the village as a lot of other places, or? Reg, any feel for that?
I mean, I'm on the DRB also, so we've had some interest in some properties within the village. We're just going through the permitting process now with them, or just following through with them on giving them the ability to build. But I haven't heard of any families not being able to find housing if they wanted to move into the area. But I have heard a lot of people saying that, the Swanton school system, the public safety departments, the fire, the police, offer us a very comfortable community to live in. So
I know Brian probably address it, or maybe you. There's been some movement in housing in the town.
Yeah.
A lot of sales and interest in movement in the town.
Yeah.
Of course, village is limited in space and available housing opportunities. So, but I haven't heard anything negative about it. So,
no.
Memorial Valley Rail Trail, I guess just about completely done. I guess maybe a few sections left. Have you perchance known? And of course, I guess I was wrong for years. I thought the official western terminus of that was what, of course, is a Richard Dick Thompson Fit and Healthy Rec Path, which is separate from LVRT ends, I guess, where the Fit and Healthy Rec Path begins, I guess.
Yep.
Have you noticed? Have you noticed some more traffic coming into town with Memorial Valley Rail Trail, with some sections to the east now completed? Anybody notice any? Of course, not the best time of year probably to be noticing a lot of people, but that still sounds like it could be a pretty good plus for Swanton, obviously. Swanton to St. Jay.
Great addition.
Yeah.
Do you guys know the story on? I know Joel was able to get a grant for the trailhead. Do you know the backstory on that?
Like a kiosk or?
Yeah, when I talked to the Swanton town folks, they were, I guess, hoping to move on something like that possibly.
Right.
And I think SEP has some input in that too, the Swanton Enhancement Project. They're just ramping up after the holidays. They're having a meeting coming up, I think. And like Reg said, Joel Clark and has got some kind of money for that, and we'll have to run that through the DRB, but that spot is vital to the end of the rail trail.
Interesting. So. Bill, you see that as just could be just a real big asset for you guys.
Everything that's happening is a great opportunity. It really is. I mean, everything you talk about, the Montreal, the Nexus, the airport expansion, the economic development, the recreation, it all ties together. I think the future is bright for one Swanton.
And I'd be surprised if I heard otherwise, but I hear you. I'm glad you mentioned the airport expansion. I guess maybe you're already underway, but we've talked about this before. But again, extension of water and sewer lines from MVU. Will that be later this year?
That'll be this spring.
This spring, in fact.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that does sound like it's got an incredible potential to me out there once those lines get extended. And I guess the airport and I guess that work's being done by the state.
Yeah.
Aside from the water and sewer lines, has that work been done or not? Not yet.
Not yet.
No, they're going to close the airport this spring.
In fact, that's for a while.
For a few months anyway, to extend the runway.
To do the runway extension.
I'm not sure if I shouldn't stick my neck out, but I was talking to people up at the airport, and they're going to close the airport well, I'm not sure if they're going to extend the runway at this point, but they're putting culverts in
Okay.
to cut across the existing runway to better drain it off. So I know they're going to do that while the airport is closed. I'm not sure if they're going to extend the runway at this point, but it is going to be closed this spring.
But the village you folks were strongly supportive of that project.
Yeah, we were co-signers for the USDA grant, the lion's share of that, the cost for that project, yes.
Right. And I guess it's a Swanton town thing, but it looks like a rec path or sidewalk, whatever, from MVU to village limits, sounds like that's got some life to it.
I believe it has.
They intend to go to construction this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, I guess I'm sure I mentioned before, probably we all did, why that wasn't done back in 1970, but hindsight's
So I can remember
2020.
in 2011 when I got on, I was going through paperwork, like Bill has gone through paperwork and rummaging through my office back. Anyway, I saw the project that was under Dick Thompson, and we resurrected it, and now it's, 12 years later it's going to happen.
Well, I suppose better late than never.
Well, that's the same thing with the RIV. Better late than never.
That's correct.
Neal?
That's right.
When was the RIV last operating? Talking decades ago, right?
Yeah, maybe early 90s.
Yeah,
but
sounds
after
about
that,
right. I'm sure I've mentioned, I think probably more than once on this show, literally my last memory of the RIV was going there just in my reporting days when there was a murder with my old friend John Edwards leading the murder suspect out of the RIV. That's my last and maybe about only memory of the RIV.
Yep.
Anyway, but again, it's going to be out of here in the not too distant future. It's a word, right?
Let's go with that. Yes.
Any hopes in the legislature? Of course, and on flashback to one of your immediate, George Leahy was your immediate predecessor, Reg?
Yes. Yeah.
I can remember him talking legislative stuff with him, saying, "Hey, do me a favor and we don't need any more laws. Don't do anything, and I'll be a happy guy." Is there anything out of the legislature that the village is looking for, or hoping not for? Anything in particular?
I mean, I know that VEPSA has offered a lot of good legislation for utilities, public power utilities, that have helped all the members of VEPSA. And actually, it's helped Vermont Electric Co-op, Washington Electric as well. So those type of legislations are beneficial for us within that realm. But anything else, I mean, as long as they get us through our license, I'd be happy. But.
Are you getting any help? I mean, I'm sure you've talked over the years to local legislators, and I would guess the governor once in a while about just how difficult that process is, but
yeah, so
it sounds like the bureaucracy just gets so solidified.
Yeah, it's like walking through a cow pile, I guess.
Yeah.
It just gets deeper and deeper as you go. We had a letter drafted to the governor. We haven't submitted it to the governor. I know our attorney is going to draft another one that maybe Bill would want to present, but we'll see. I mean, it's kind of like, the governor isn't obviously going to go against what his cabinet people are, doing, but making him apprised of what the process is and how arduous it is probably a good thing.
I guess one of the issues getting a lot of attention, not surprisingly, what the clean heat standard now, what the affordable, I love these new names, like the Inflation Reduction Act at the federal level, but what the affordable housing, is that a concern? Are you getting involved in that at all, Bill? Are you paying attention to that? That's one of the issues getting a lot of attention.
Reg was the past chair of VEPSA, again, Vermont Public
Power Supply Authority. Yeah.
So they're in the legislature, they're embedded, they watch that. I've learned long ago to not be overly concerned about bills that are stuck to the wall. Yeah. And even during testimony until they reach crossover. If they cross over, then you got to be acutely aware of what those bills are and what the impacts are. Of
course, it did make it last year to be just barely with governor's veto, upheld by like one vote or something. And now, of course, Democrats have a super majority.
Yes.
Reg, so that's an issue have you dealt with VEPSA with that? Are you folks concerned about that bill?
I haven't had to deal with that. I just let VEPSA handle it, but no.
Had probably other things to deal with.
I had plenty until Bill showed up. Yep.
Interesting.
What would be real nice would be if the Swanton community could cash in on the governor's program to increase housing, if we could, I hate to bring it up, but the Riviera Hotel property would be an ideal use for his development money for multiple housing. And we've got some other properties in the town and maybe in the village that we could also use that, but we'll see what happens there. So.
Village, of course, we talked about the wastewater facility and the state trying to get you to reduce phosphorus and all. Lake Champlain water quality issues. Bill, anything you've jumped into at this point, that's kind of always around?
Yeah, we're going to continually hear water quality and phosphorus and wastewater, and we know we have to do wastewater upgrades to the tune. It's going to be millions, and we know that. And there's a project that was just presented to us, and it's a very small project, but it happens to be on village property in the Swanton Village Beach, and that's just a small example of what can be done to help reduce phosphorus, and that's just catch basins, runoff, a little bit of mitigation on a very micro level.
Right.
But yeah, we'll continue to hear that. That's one of the collective identified weaknesses kind of in our enterprise is we have a very finite amount of time to identify an incredibly large amount of available federal funding in grants, whether it's water, wastewater, infrastructure. So we are going to start exploring how best to accelerate our capabilities in that area. That's a sales pitch to my village president right there to help us address that need.
Right. Any Abenaki issues come up before the village trustees? Sounds like the local Abenaki folks sound like they're pretty, see some stories and stuff, but it seems like I read more about Abenaki issues in the last couple of years than for a while before that. But any Abenaki issues, Neal, ever come up before the village board or not?
Not for the village board.
Not for the village board.
They've just received a grant to renovate the building in the back of their headquarters.
Which is a part museum, I think, also, right?
Yeah.
And but no, they're good neighbors. They're good. They applied to have a celebration in the park last year. They have a small celebration.
I've seen that in the
compared to
past
other
before. Yeah, I've caught that in the past.
And they put a couple of years back. They put a totem pole.
Right.
Chief Richard Menard there put a totem pole in one end of the park. So.
Right.
Yeah, Bill and I went in, and when Bill first came on board, we went in and had a tour of the food shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing wonderful work down there at the Abenaki Center.
If you haven't had Debbie DuBois Lavoie in, you
good
should.
person to talk to.
Incredible energy. The food shelf there, just tremendous work.
Yeah, that sounds like a good suggestion. Down to about under 2 minutes. Bill, anything you want to quickly jump into that we haven't talked about?
No, I think we hit it all. There's a lot of projects. There's a lot of opportunities. I'm again thankful for all the support and Reg, and I look forward to that continued transition. So I'm going to appeal to the president and the trustees that we keep Reg on for stuff, because he has proven that he can. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to leave it at that. I was going to pick on him, but
No, that's okay.
I'm going to leave it alone.
Not yet. Not
I know,
yet.
I know.
So,
We do have fun, but we get stuff done, for sure.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and
Neal, you have you feel like Swanton's moving more. Have you got better feelings for Swanton right about now than you had, say, a few years ago?
I am more excited about what's going to happen this year than I have been in the past 5 years. Of course, with COVID and all the health issues, that threw a wrench in the whole works. But and there will be a celebration when that Riviera Hotel comes down. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
No matter what these guys say, there will be a celebration. If it has to be at my house, just down the street.
I trust my old friend Butch Patch might be involved in
And
such
Butch Patch will be
celebration
there.
also.
So, but anyways, no, we're going in a good direction. I feel real good about having these two fellows work together, and our boards work well together. And I hope the people of our community get out and vote on town meeting day. So.
Yeah, and again, we're taping the show on Tuesday, Feb. 7, and annual village meeting coming up on March 7th. So yeah, hopefully there'll be a decent turnout for that. Many thanks to Bill Sheets, the Swanton Village Manager, Village President Neal Speer, former longtime Village Manager and Special Projects Coordinator, Reg Beliveau. Thanks for your time, folks.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank
And
you,
thanks
Reg.
to producer Alan Cunningham for doing all the hard work back there. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We'll see you next time on Northwest Access TV. See ya.